Peace and blessings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Asiya, where our theme on this show is educating and empowering the women of our communities and the girls that they are raising. Welcome back. I am your host, Asiya Nasir. I am not only the host of Conversations with Asiya, but also I am a consultant for nonprofit organizations, as well as a founder of my own nonprofit organization, Jessica Cares, where we did the spinoff of the talk show Conversations with Asiya, and you are here for part 2 of a 4-part series on the topic of triumph and tenacity, stories of women who overcame. So if you was with me last week, you got to meet the amazing Daisy Grant and her amazing story of where she, her beginnings, her humble beginnings to, where she is today and all the wonderful things that she's doing. And today is not going to be anything less than that. We have a wonderful guest here. She's a dear friend of mine that I've been knowing now for almost a decade. She's an amazing woman who I've personally seen her transformation, and this is one of the reasons why I asked her to be on today's show, so that way she can share her story of inspiration, tenacity, triumph, overcoming. Her story is just amazing, and when you hear it today, everything that she's gone through and what she's doing today, I pray, again, to educate and empower those that are watching, so you could see all of the amazing things that she's doing, be motivated, and can see that for yourself, no matter what you've come through, or no matter what you're currently going through, that there is light at the end. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our very special guest today, Shariea Shoatz. I want to give you a little bit of background about her, but I'm going to let her tell her story. She works with special needs children. She is amazing. She just got a degree in another degree or certification in something. Am I right, Shariea?
Yeah, I'm working on my another master's in school counseling.
So she is an amazing educator. I've seen her, the things that she does, what she can bring out in children. I think that has to do with her personality and what she's gone through, the way she's able to touch children who needs that special touch. A little TLC, Shariea is the educator for you. So she does that. She's headquartered in Delaware. She is also a founder of a nonprofit organization called Buddy Speaks, which is near and dear to her heart because it was something that impacted her life and those that she loves as well, that are very close to her. And Buddy Speaks is a nonprofit organization that helps survivors of sexual assault and abuse be able to overcome that, and then educating parents to be able to help their children to first and foremost prevent it, and if they are victims of it, and being able to overcome. She is also an author of her own book, Buddy Speaks, and the book is an educational book that helps you learn as parents and as children what to look for, what are the signs of a predator. I mean, it is an amazing book. I am also someone who bought the book, so I know what I'm talking about. It is amazing, and she's touring all over, from schools to houses of worship, just educating anyone who really wants to learn and be able to change the trajectory and of what's happening with these predators, and educating the families to make sure that they don't become victims themselves. So that's a little bit about our guest.
I don't know what else to say.
Welcome to the show, Shariea. Did I leave anything out?
No, you just like you introduced me. I'm like, wow, is that me? Is that because you don't realize it when you're working, and you're working from passion and turning your pain and your story into, good works. So I'm just like, oh yeah, I did do that. Oh yeah, I did do that. So wow. Thank you so much.
It's amazing. And I think I know for me myself, someone who struggled with self-esteem and self-worth because of my own, childhood traumas, it's very difficult to hear compliments or, accolades. You're just like, is that me? Like you said, is that me? You're almost ready to hear the negative, but you're like, I can't believe that. And that's just a testament to why I wanted to have you on the show, because I know your story. I know what you've been through. And in spite of that, you've been able to still accomplish all of the things that we just mentioned, and still striving to accomplish more. So welcome again to the show. And please, for those that are watching, whether you're on our Facebook page, or if you're on LinkedIn, or if you're on our YouTube channel, please chime in comments and ask Shariea and myself questions, so that way we can keep this conversation engaging. So, Shariea, I would love to just kind of start from the beginning, because that's kind of where your story began, as it relates to the things that you've had to, become triumphant over and overcome. So, if you could share with those, I want you to be the narrator of your story. Tell the viewers about your childhood, and you know how that happened. What happened?
So I was born and raised in Philadelphia in a home with my grandparents and my mother and my stepfather. And, I was little Shariea who just always wanted to make everyone happy. Little girl who used to cut up paper and, could help my grandfather with his medication and my grandmother. And, but I remember there always being a saying in the Black community and other people's community, and it's this famous statement, what is it? Silence is golden, right? And they say silence is golden. And when you think about it, like if you don't say anything, if someone is arguing with you or someone is doing something, silence is golden. But that it's not always the case. It's not always true. Silence isn't always golden. So when I was a little girl, I always block out the exact age, but I know it's between the age of 8 and 10, because my grandfather passed away when I was 10. So I know it was that age. I had a secret, and I kept quiet about it. And one day my grandfather, he blurted out, "I sure hope that girl ain't pregnant. I sure hope that girl ain't pregnant." And like I said, I was in the 6th grade when my grandfather died. And I know that because I was graduating from elementary school. So it was right before he graduated. And my grandfather knew who he was talking about. And I knew what he was talking about, but no one else knew.
Mm-hmm.
And what was happened was my grandfather witnessed me being assaulted by a family member, that I love and I trusted. And that was cool. And that was him saying, "I hope she's not pregnant. I hope she ain't pregnant." But he never went any further than that. So, me growing up, I learned to cope with my pain of my abuse by people pleasing, by, having low self esteem, no self worth. As a teenager, feeling like I wasn't Muslim, I was a non Muslim, I was a Lutheran, feeling like I was only worthy of my body. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was, that the way that I kept myself safe was by doing things to make people happy, not wanting to ruffle any feathers. And if I could just go back a little bit, my family would always have meetings about, did anyone touch you? Did anyone touch you? And they would name the elders in the family, the Uncle so-and-so, the Uncle so-and-so. And, we would all say no because those uncles didn't touch me, but no one would think that your cousin, an older teen, because when people think about sexual assault, and as we know, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys experience some form of sexual assault before they're 18. And 40% of children that experience sexual assault are abused by an older teen. But we don't talk about that. And that older teen was my cousin, and he was the cool cousin. He was the one that could dance, he could pop, people liked him.
People liked him.
People loved him. I loved him. It was my cool cousin. I mean, it was my cool cousin. I loved him, but I hated what he did. But who could I tell? And one day I did, because I was like, I'm tired of him touching me. I don't want to put his penis in my mouth anymore. I don't want him to make me, do things. And I'm not even 10 years old, So they asked me, and I told this one particular family member. She asked, and it was all of the cousins, because they were doing checking, and they prevented the best way they could, because they didn't have the tools that we have today. So they asked, and of course I'm going to say, for years we would say no, and then this particular time I said yes, and I mentioned his name. But nothing happened, because families don't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. I mean, later it was said, well, they didn't think it was as serious. They thought it was just, oh, he touched me. He may have give me a peck on the cheek, or he was just a kissing cousin. They didn't know it was as serious as it was. But if a child discloses that they've been touched, it's serious. You know, if a child discloses that someone showed them pornography, someone touched their self in front of them, whether it's a male or female, it's serious. You have to take it serious right away. So what happened? So since I disclosed and no one did anything, then once again, I'm not worthy of protection. I'm not worthy of safety. I'm only worthy of being touched. I'm ugly. I mean, I literally grew up feeling like I was disgusting because, and I still, like, I'm not going to lie, up until today, no matter how long I've been on my journey, I still feel disgusted. Like, why do I know what my cousin penis look like? Like,
Mm.
why do I know this? Why do I have this image of what his private part looks like? I'm not supposed to see that. I'm not supposed to know that. That's and why didn't anyone protect me? So I went and I learned how to protect myself by people pleasing. So people pleasing included, you know, doing what someone wanted me to do just so that I won't be hurt or I won't be yelled at or I won't be touched. And
So I want to stop you. I want to stop you there before we go because I want to ask you about that because I've shared my journey. I'm also someone who was molested at 8 with an older teen, and mine was of the same sex, which added a different layer of especially at that time, shame. So I do know what you're talking about. But you mentioned two things and I don't know if people caught it, and that's why I want to just double back before we move forward in our discussion. At what age did you finally disclose what happened to you? Okay.
I don't remember, but I know I was a little girl. I know I was young. I know I was young. Um, because with the PTSD, when things happen to you that's just so traumatizing, there's your body and your brain will block certain parts out so that you can feel safe and so that you don't remember.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know.
Okay.
One day, because that's a part of my healing that, like, I wanted to know. I always wanted to know how much older was he than me. And when I
Hmm.
would ask, like, what's his age, people would get defensive. Why? Because they know. And I went public. So then it's like, oh, you're making our family look bad because you're sharing this dirty
Hmm.
secret. So I wanted to know, like, I know he was an older teen, but how much older was he than me? What age was he when he was touching me? I did find that out eventually. And I just felt even more disgusted. Like, I was 8 or 9 and you were like 14, 15. Like, what
Hmm.
is wrong with you? So
Right.
then yeah, and there was one more thing that you wanted to say.
Yeah, there was a question because you mentioned that they were asking you before you even disclose.
Yeah.
You were asking, did Uncle so and so touch you? Did so and so touch you? I want to ask you, I want to be respectful if you feel comfortable sharing. Was there history of sexual assault in your family that made that something important that they were asking? Because that's not a question that you typically would just ask, especially back then. Now maybe more so, but back then not as much. So was there history in your family that made them question?
Yeah, there was history in my family. There's some history that I don't know about or that I learned about years later, but a big history. My sister, she was this wasn't within the family, but she was gang raped by older teenagers when she was in middle school, and they brutally attacked her. I mean, it's brutal anyway to rape someone, but for her to be the age that she was, and they were older teens. But in addition, I have a younger cousin, and she was raped by who she thought was her father, but he was actually her stepfather, and she was actually removed from her home, her parents' home, or all of them were, because of the level of abuse that she endured. So, I did feel like, part of me felt like, and you have to excuse my facial expressions because healing is a lifelong journey, and when you talk about it, it releases the guilt, it releases the shame, but then it also still brings up some
Some raw
emotions.
emotions.
Yeah, and then, sometimes I
Hmm.
might make a face like, I can't believe you, like, I know,
I,
so
Shariea,
please
I
do.
understand.
Yeah. So I'm just like, they didn't know what to do. But right now, and I'm just like, yes, you did, because that happened to my cousin, and y'all knew to call the police. Y'all knew to call DHS. But once again, one of the things that parents do, adults do, is they don't take it serious as if it's an older teen. If
And
it's an
the
adult,
favorite one, and the reputation that this particular person has in the family, it's like we don't want to, taint that. We don't want to, ruin that for that particular person because he's the favorite, or she's the favorite. So I understand. I definitely understand.
and the reputation of the family. Like, if we
Right.
do something, here's again, because we have a family full of people that are educated, and my grandmother was a proud woman, you know what I mean? And she did a great job raising. She had a lot of children, and her and the children were from my grandfather, and to have to admit this as a family, then a family feels shame because we failed. So, oh, this is, like I said, the person who I disclosed to, she said, I thought y'all were just kissing cousins. So now that I know more, I'm like, well, why did you think that was normal? So what else was going on for you to say, oh, I thought you, I said, cousin, what the heck want to kiss their cousin?
Right.
And then, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned now that at the point where you disclosed, what happened to you, you felt still unprotected because, as you were just saying, no one did anything, no one responded, there was no consequences, there was no validation that it was wrong what happened to you. So because of that, go ahead.
And, just for, I never disclosed to my mother. I never disclosed to my grandmother. I just disclosed to my this one particular person, my family member. So my mother, she did not know. She didn't know for a long time. So perhaps my mother would have responded different, because,
Right.
my, my mom, she a little crazy, I don't I don't know. But yeah. And go ahead, you were saying
so
something.
because so because you felt that way, that who you did disclose it to, who you felt comfortable to disclose it to at the time, there was no consequences, there was no protection, there was no validation that this was something that was wrong done to you and that it was not your fault, right? You started to allude to the behaviors that stemmed from that. Could you share, because for those that are watching, I want them to be able to recognize some signs. If their own children are dealing with that, I want them to be able to see the signs based on, and I shared some of those same signs. I would love for you to share what were some of the things that you started doing. And I'm going to write this down as you're writing, so if you see me looking down, it's not that I'm not paying attention, but I want you to share with the viewers what were some of the things that you started displaying as a result of feeling either that you can't disclose it, or you have disclosed it and there's still no consequences or protection.
I felt unworthy, I felt unloved, unprotected. I always felt ugly, because it was like, I must be the ugly one, because why did he touch me? I mean, to later find out I wasn't the only one that
Right.
was touched, but I was just like, I must be the ugly one and the dirty one, because why did he touch me and he didn't touch anyone else? Why did he touch me and then there was a time where he didn't just touch me, he touched me and another cousin at the same time. I felt weak. Like, why didn't you tell? Like, why didn't you tell right away? You must be soft. You're a punk, you're a punk, you're soft. And even growing up, I trained myself to not speak up for
Right.
myself. And people be like,
Right.
you're soft, you're the weak one. You don't curse anyone out, or you don't go off. And, because that was how I learned to protect myself, because I didn't know how to, I wasn't taught that. I wasn't shown that from early on. And
Right.
then, I started feeling like, my my body and the way that I, made a man feel, not
Mm.
man like grown man, but even inside of my marriages, like, I'm going to be the wife that makes you feel this way and make you feel that way, or I'm the one that can perform oral sex the best. Why? Because I've been doing it since I was 8. All that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feeling like, if they like me. I remember, because like I said, I wasn't raised Muslim. I remember I was dating someone and they did not, I wasn't a virgin when I got married the first time. So I had a boyfriend and he did not want to have sex with me. And I felt like, you don't like me. You don't want to have. And he was like, "Are you serious, Shariea? You
So the
really
fact that
think
he
I
was
don't
giving
want?"
you respect,
Yeah,
you took
he
it
was
as
like,
a
"You
sign.
think I don't like you because I don't want to touch you?" And I was like, "Yeah, why don't you? You think my body is not liked? You think I'm not cute? What is it?" And he was like, "Shariea, I respect you. That's why I'm not going to
Mm.
touch you." But this is what I told myself. I told myself that this
that
is
being that being being objectified, or being the object of desire, that in your mind was, he must like me. It couldn't be that he liked my intellect, or he liked, my character or my personality. That to you didn't deem someone being attracted to you, because, as you said, you felt you didn't feel pretty, you didn't feel worthy, because of not being validated. So you mentioned earlier, this is so deep. I'm writing this stuff down. You mentioned, people pleasing. How did that manifest? Because you felt unworthy, or you felt that, you wasn't heard. What did that look like?
Well, let me share this too because I'm, 100% vulnerable about my story. Um, like I said, this was many, many people who are sexually assaulted when they're a child. They experience it more than once. So I was also sexually assaulted as a teen. I was
Mm,
sexually on a date, and I was allowed to go out, and I was 18, 19, and this guy took me out on a date, and I never forget my auntie said, "Be safe. Make sure you be safe." So we went out, and he drank, but I didn't drink. That just wasn't my thing. But he got me an iced tea, and I think he poured some liquor, some alcohol in it or whatever. He's just like, "Try it, just try it." So we went, and then he said, "Look, I gotta go home. I gotta go home, and I don't want to have you sitting outside in the car. Come on in the house with me." And I was like, I gotta get home. I'm gonna get in trouble. I wasn't like these teens today where they just deal with the consequence later and not care or think they're grown because they're 18. I was like, I gotta get home.
I gotta get home. Mhm.
Yeah. So he was like, it's cool. I gotta go to the bathroom. Here he said, come on upstairs. And all the lights was out and it was dark in his house. And I'm like, okay, now mind you, this was a date. This was someone that I knew. And then he said, coming in my room. Well, I go to the bathroom because my mom might be tripping if she know you downstairs. And he turned the radio up really, really loud. Right. So I'm in his room and I'm just like, so then he start kissing me. So I start kissing him back because this was a guy that I liked. He liked me. And then, it got to the point where he started touching me and I was just like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. I want to go home. And he ripped my stockings off. He beat me up really bad and he raped me. And then he kicked me out of his house. And he didn't live too far from me, but he lived far enough. And it was late, and I walked home.
Mm.
And I got in the shower and I scrubbed my body, and I never told
You didn't tell anyone.
because I was told be safe. So I felt like I failed at keeping myself safe. So how can I go home and tell that I went inside this boy's house? I wasn't supposed to go inside of his house. I was supposed to be safe. I wasn't supposed to be kissing on a boy. So once again, because when I have these conversations where be safe, and if something happens to you and someone hurts you, it's never your fault. I even try to tell my own child, listen, I even set up like a lift, a family lift. I'm like, listen, if you out with your friends and something happens and you caught in a jam, I say use family lift. I'm not worried about what you were doing. I don't care if you were drinking, smoking. I don't care if you was at a boy house. I don't care if you was at a girl house. All I want you to do is be safe. No matter where you're at, I don't care if you're in Georgia. Use the family lift so that you can get home. All I'm worried about is your safety. And all I want you to know is that you're safe. You will
Right.
never get in trouble for somebody hurting you. I don't care if you weren't where you were supposed to be. I was never taught that conversation. And even when you
Right.
have the conversation with your teens, they still don't believe it. You know what I mean? Because I was more worried about getting in trouble because I
Trouble.
broke the rule versus this dude and what he did.
Violated you. Hmm.
Yeah, he raped me. He raped me bad. He ripped my stockings off. I had a skirt on. And I remember I saw him like years later. He worked for SEPTA. He was like a SEPTA bus driver. And he said, I'm sorry. And I spit in his face. And yeah, like how dare you say you're sorry? But once again, not knowing how to protect myself, we have to teach our children that their voice is their power. We have to be okay with having conversations with our children and with our teens so that they can know that if someone violates them, it's never their
Not
fault.
their fault.
So that they
Right.
can feel comfortable because we go off like, what? Where would you use it? So that all they can remember is that. Like, I broke the rules. I was supposed to be home. She told me to be safe. How can I tell her that I went in a boy's house? How can
Mhm.
I'm gonna get in trouble for that.
So the focus then becomes not what should be the focus. It's like, yes, there's a learning lesson in that, because in everything we do and decisions, yes, there are consequences, positive and negative for them. So yes, that's a conversation, but that's not the focus right now. The focus is what happened to you, and that despite of you being there, that does not give a person a right to violate you when you say no. No means no, right? So I yeah. So I want to just recap really before we move forward into your adult life, because we've seen now from childhood, now 8 to 10, and now here being a teenager, you being violated again. The signs that parents should look for in their children that could be potentially victims that are not disclosing or afraid to disclose, or as you said, I was in the wrong place. I didn't obey my parents, and so they find themselves in a situation where they're violated and afraid to tell. What are some of the telltale signs that I wrote was promiscuity. That was the first thing.
Promiscuity. Yeah.
Yeah, promiscuity,
Promiscuity.
because you was like, what? How I make a man feel, or how I make the opposite sex. It's that kind of energy, that you're putting out. So that was something that I took away. That when someone is being respectful, they deem the young man or the young woman boring, or they're not into me, when in fact it's just the person being healthy and respectful. You deem it as not being liked or being desired. um and
Overcame.
yeah, and then sometimes putting yourself in risky situations because you've been exposed already to risky situations. um is
Self-sabotaging. Self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
Picking, choosing people that I'll just say you don't choose anyone that's going to hit you right away. Nobody that you date just punches you the first time that you date them. It don't work that way.
Right.
But maybe just ignoring red flags because the person, because these people out here, these narcissists, these toxic people, these abusers, they pay attention to you. They pay attention to your loose boundaries. They pay attention to your vulnerability. They listen to
Mhm.
you. They show up as a friend and tell me about you, or they just watch you for a long time. They know, okay, well, she wants someone that makes her feel safe, or she wants someone that's going to protect her. She wants someone and then when you see red flags, you ignore them because they are so-called satisfying an unmet need. If you had an unmet need in childhood of sense of safety,
Right.
security, love, validation, then you
So when a
carry that.
person comes and gives that to you, you latch onto that. So they latch on quickly to what
Yes.
appears to be good. And then I noticed something else that you said, Shariea. You said someone who may be a victim of some type of abuse is that they have very low self-esteem and sense of self-worth. They feel ugly. They feel undesirable. They feel like somehow they deserved it. Something must be wrong with me that they chose me to do this to, right? So these are all
Yes.
signs of, so if you're hearing someone say, is there anything else that a parent or a guardian or someone should look for in signs of a child that may have been a victim of, sexual assault?
A child that is Okay, we have trauma responses. We have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is the one that people don't pay attention to that much. That's the people pleaser. That's the one that is overly nice. Always, like when I see it in my classroom now, I'm like, what happened to you? I have a student, she fawns so bad, and she actually ended up disclosing to me about 2 months ago. And I knew something was going,
Well, we
yeah.
see
And
the signs. We see the
yeah,
signs.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that, overeating. Overeating is a sign. Not eating is a sign. You know what I mean? The signs of all of a sudden your grades are dropping. Use of
Mm,
drugs. You know what I mean? The use of drugs. Those are signs. STDs. You know what I mean? If your kids' rooms and the kids' rooms are dirty, but the depression and anxiety where the room is like overly
messy.
messy,
Hmm.
extremely messy.
Almost like hoarding.
Yeah. um
Mhm.
Children that all of a sudden you're wearing these big baggy clothes, you know what I mean, changing your dress. Muslim girls who no longer want to cover, they don't want to practice Islam, they don't want to pray. Christian girls who don't want to go to church, who go to church and promiscuous, you know what I mean, you know
Yeah.
um self-harm. Self-harm. Pay attention to your kids. Their arms right here inside the fold, inside the thigh, the back of the knee, the back of the leg, the back of the neck if they got long hair. Sometimes, self harm, cutting, though it's the stomach, the bottom part,
Mm.
because they'll cut in places where you won't pay attention. The cutting, the biting, the burning themselves.
The
These are
anger.
signs.
That was me. So when you mentioned fight, flight, fawn, and what was the other one?
Freeze.
Freeze. I was the fight. I developed extreme anger issues
Yes.
because I fought. It was like, you're not going to put me in a place where I feel like I'm not in control.
Yes.
So I fought. And it was
Yes.
and I was triggered, like trigger happy to fight. It was like I wanted to put people on notice that don't even think about it. That's that I fought, with my mouth, with my hands, with everything. I was just this angry person. So when you're mentioning certain things, and I was just like, yeah, fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. So freeze, what does that mean? Because I think people are very familiar with fight or flight,
Right.
avoidance, or overly aggressive. But freeze, what does that look like?
So when danger comes, they can't do anything. They can't move. They're stuck. And you're like, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to say anything. You're just going to be there.
I'm just
Like,
gonna let it
that's
happen, right?
like that was one of my trauma responses too.
Mm,
Freezing. Fight wasn't one of them. Fight was not one of them at all.
yeah.
Fawn and freeze, and it's just like, yeah, they get stuck, and you'll
Mhm.
literally see them. Sometimes it's like a deer with its highlights on,
You're in the
when
headlight,
they
yeah.
headlights, when their eyes get big, or they won't say anything. They can't move. They're
Right.
stuck in that state.
Now, Shariea, we're up into your teenage years now, where we see these are some of the things that you're sharing, and I want to thank you so much, Shariea, for being so transparent. I think that's part of empowerment, and why I do the shows that I do, and why I do the work that I do through Jessica Cares. It's transparency is so therapeutic for the person that has gone through trauma. And it's a form of empowering to help not only yourself but to help others. So I want to thank you so much. In I know this is not easy to talk about. Sometimes it leaves you with raw emotions and triggers. So please, if I'm triggering anything, stop me. I do know I've been there. I've been through therapy myself. So if I'm touching on anything that's triggering, please let me know, and we can move on from it. So
Thank
we've
you.
gotten from childhood, teenage years to now adulthood. How did that manifest? You mentioned that you was married. I know you've been married multiple times. Um, how did that manifest into your adulthood, your trauma? Because when I met you, you were as an adult, married at the time, and was in the thick of the trauma. So how did that manifest in your marriages? How did that manifest in your parenting, with your children, the trauma? Because it does touch everyone that you interact with. How did that manifest in your life? So these are now for the adults that are listening and tuning in. How did that manifest in your life?
With my parenting, um, I had, we call them loose boundaries. I had no boundaries. I people please with my children. You know,
Mm.
I always wanted them to feel safe and to feel loved to a fault. You
And
know
to
what I
like
mean?
you. I
And to
want
like
my.
me,
Mm-hmm.
and to like me. And them jokers don't like that. Like you do all that, and
They still don't like you.
still like I
You
need a
say
whole
one no and
different.
they don't like you.
Yeah, and being extremely protective over them to a fault because it didn't teach them to protect themselves. You know what I mean? So, I'm going to make sure that no one hurts them, but I'm not giving them the tools so
Tools.
that they won't fawn. But, like my daughter, her trauma response is fight. Ooh, she fight. She fight with her mouth. My son's trauma response is fawn and freeze. So when I pay
Very
attention
similar
to
to
it,
you.
similar to me, yeah, and I can see it and recognize it. So with the way that I parented, like I said, the lack of boundaries. But one thing and people pleasing with my own children, and then my marriages, um, it showed up because the same thing, but the people that I chose, I was very, very easy prey. Very, very open, very, very vulnerable. They like saw straight through me. And then you looking at me like Shariea, she got a master's degree. She
Yes.
studied
I want
overseas.
to talk about
Like,
that.
yeah, she studied overseas. She knows Arabic. She lived in Morocco. She lived in Syria.
Breakfast
She made
beautifully.
pies. She dressed nice. She's sharp. She a fly girl. She a good girl. You know, now she married, not like that, but like that. Like what made her choose the people that she chose? Because they were able to look at me and they were able to study me and show up as the person that I wanted and needed in childhood. Oh, you're going to protect me. You're not going to let anyone hurt me. You're not going to let this person hurt me. You're not going to let this person hurt me. Oh, you're really family oriented. But it was all a mask. And then when that mask falls off, and then it was like, even in marriages, I'm gonna be the perfect wife. I'm gonna be the wife that makes the best food, that keeps the house clean, that dresses up when you come home, that helps you with your business, that obeys you when you tell me that I can't have none of my family over my house and my family couldn't know where I lived, who quit my job when I lived overseas in Dubai, who came home, who listened, who allowed you to yell at me, yell at my kids, control me, not allow me to work, everything, gave it all up, lost myself because I just wanted you to love me. I just wanted you to like me. I didn't want you to leave me. I didn't want another divorce. And it was just like I kept marrying the same guys, but different zip codes.
Different name. Different
Except my
name.
first marriage. My first marriage, he was not, I was just telling my mom
Mm.
today, I was like, Mom, if I ever get married again, I pray that the person has the personality of my first husband, but better, because he was like one of the kindest men that I knew in my life. But, we got divorced for other reasons, but not because of abuse, verbal abuse or emotional abuse. And subhanAllah,
May Allah grant that to you. May Allah grant
and
that
me,
for you. I
and
mean,
some days I'd be like, oh, I'll just get married in Jenna. I just gotta wait for Jenna because things ain't looking
mhm.
good in this life,
Right. They ain't looking too good on this end, right?
And the other times
But
I'll be like, this
but
thing.
what I do wanna, well, what I go ahead, Sharia.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. You said you do want to.
I wanna share because as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, when I met you about I would say 8 years ago is when I met you. I think it was 2016 is when I met you. 16. So that was 7, 8 years ago when I met you. You're not the same person, Shariea. You're not the same person. Not when I tell you such a difference from the time that I met you to today. And that's what I want now. We've heard the journey of what you had to have tenacity for, what you have triumphed over. I want them to hear your journey of triumph and overcoming. And that's what this whole series is about, stories of women who overcame. What was the moment for you when you said, look, I'm not going to live like the victim. I'm not going to be the person that always has the sad story and, the person that is the victim of the stories all that. When did you say, I'm taking control of my life? I'm not the person at fault of what happened to me as a child. When did that happen? And what steps did you take? And what did you start doing in order to not only empower yourself, but empower others? So I know that was a loaded question. So the first one, let's start with what was that moment for you, that moment when you said, this is going to stop today?
I was laying in the bed. It was during COVID. And I was listening to Coach Shariea from the Dope Muslim Woman podcast. And I was listening to her. I was listening to her talk about narcissists. And I was like, what is this? And then she was just talking about the cycle. And I was like, yo, I've been through that. And she
that sounds familiar.
Yeah. I was like, hold up. And I was sick because I had COVID. And I was just like, and my girlfriend had already started sending me stuff before. And then it started connecting. And I was just like, and I just started listening and listening and listening. And I was like, maybe that's what I've been going through. And I was just like, listen, enough is enough. And I started researching and listening. And then I became a little bit obsessed with it. Like, I need to find out what is this? So, if it was anything about narcissism, I'm listening to the videos. I'm reading the books. Because I wanted to be educated because I thought I was crazy. But I knew I wasn't crazy. But
they make you feel crazy.
They make you feel crazy. And I literally detoxed. It was like coming off of a drug.
Well, I that's what I call it. I don't call it when you're involved with I don't care if it's dating the person or in a marriage with a narcissist. I don't call it a relationship. I call it an addictionship because
that's exactly what it is.
The trauma bond that they put you through. You become addicted to the highs and the lows and the trying to get back to that love bombing stage to make you feel good, the validation because you can't validate yourself yet, right? All of that. So it's an addictionship. So yeah, I get it.
And then I was like, listen, I don't want to feel like this anymore. You know what I mean? So I started learning and understanding what I experienced. I had to go through the withdrawal, and it felt like, and not only withdrawal from my ex, but withdrawal from codependent relationships and friendships. That was
hard.
That was rough because when you're codependent and you can be trauma bonded, not just with a husband, but with a girlfriend, with a cousin, with a family member, with whatever. I had, either I got discarded, a lot of them discarded me, or I cut the relationship because I was like, I'm tired of being used. I'm tired of only getting called when you want me to help you, and then when because of my people pleasing ways, I'm not going to blame it all on people pleasing because I'm not giving myself credit. I like to serve. I like to help. So I'm not going to just say it was because of my abuse. That's just who I am. But not stopping when I want to stop.
Not knowing when to stop and say no.
And wanting to say no, but I learned how to say no and not feel guilty. I learned how to say no and not feel like I'm wrong, or okay, if they stop talking to me, they stop talking to me. It's like what, they ain't talking to me anyway. They only talk to me when they want me to help them with their situation, when they want me to help them with their organization, or when they want me to help them with something they have to do. And I went through a phase where I was alone.
And that is difficult for someone who's a codependent. That is difficult. Having to sit in that space, that uncomfortable space, is silent.
And let me tell you, I would wake up and it was like, I'm not going to my phone. I would not touch social media or call anyone. I had a regiment. I woke up, made my tahajjud, my night prayer for those who are not Muslim, and then I would listen to the Quran. I would listen to a talk. I would listen to something empowering. I had to. I was like, I had to feed my soul.
You had to replace the codependency to that person to new behaviors, new routines in order to be able to heal. I want to just stay right there for a second.
Okay.
Because I think this is a part that people miss.
Yes.
Healing is not something that you just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to choose to be healed and I don't have any, I'm going to just do away with this. It is hard work. And it has to be something that just as committed as you was to being in something unhealthy, you have to be committed to being healthy, healing, whole, with or without people, right? It's something that, like you said, and I mean, it was all, I mean, you described in your body language everything that I'm talking about, the work, the hard work, the wanting, I mean, literally feeling like you are going through withdrawals.
Yes.
I mean, literally walking to go pick up, putting the phone down.
Yep.
No, I'm not going to call. Or I'm gonna do this. I mean, literally talking yourself out of doing unhealthy things that you have made habit. You're saying no more.
I carried a journal, so every time I had thoughts and feelings, I would write it down. It could be I would write big or small, and then I went into coaching. I went to I didn't just do therapy, because talk therapy, okay, I'm gonna go talk. Yeah. I had to do behavioral coaching. I had to understand because I didn't know a thing about unmet childhood needs. I know I used to go to therapy and I used to say, can you help me? I used to call it abandonment.
And all they do is let you talk.
Yeah. I was like, I got abandonment issues. And can you help me with my abandonment issues? Because I want to walk, because I got to the point where it's like, I want to walk away from red flags. But when I did this behavioral coaching, I understood about the trauma bond. I understood about the codependency. I understood about the unmet needs. I had to do a worksheet, and it was like all these needs, check them up like it was questions, and then you had to make a check if your need was not met. I was like, dang, I only had one need met in the childhood. I was like, and it wasn't just from your mother, it was from your mother and your father. So even if your mother met it, if your father didn't meet it,
it was still an unmet need, right? So you learned, you did the work.
I changed my diet. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Shariea.
And I changed my diet. So it was like I changed what my soul, and the wrong, I had to cleanse. I had to get myself right with the law. And my daughter, she used to say, what prayer is she praying? Because she would always hear me in the living room, because I would come in the living room and I would always pray to Hajj. And it would be like, I would be crying to Allah, and I'm like, Allah, I'm sorry. And I'm going to tell you, my life changed tremendously. My closest friend from middle school, she texted me today and she said, Ree, I am a witness to, and listen, don't get me wrong.
I just said it.
Yeah. I was like, I still go through it. I'm back on my, I got to lose some weight again. You know what I mean? That part, because I went, it's like you said, it's always a journey that you have to remember. But, subhanAllah, from my prayers and the tahajjud and then my regular prayers, and I listen to Islamic talks, but I also listen to it wasn't just listen to Islam. I had to listen to some affirmations. I listened to some Les Browns, Brene Brown. I had to list Oprah's, Michelle
Tony
Obama.
Robbins, the Tony
Yes,
Robbins, you had to listen to it all,
I
right?
had
And
to
you had to
listen
listen
to
to
it
Eric,
all.
all of the motivational speakers and coaches that were like, these are the daily routine things that help you also, that align with your prayers. And that's what
Yeah,
people don't realize. It's what the Christians say it all the time. Faith without works is dead, right? In
right.
Islam, we say Allah is not going to change a condition of a people until they what? Change it
Change
within
the
themselves.
condition.
Meaning you got to put in the work. You have
Yes.
to put in some work. You have to do something to work. And I always say, honor your prayers. If you are praying for change, and you have to honor that by doing your work, and then let Allah take care of the rest, and bless what it is that you're doing. So I have been a testament, Shariea, to the change, the transformation. When I tell you, from 7-8 years ago to the Shariea that I see today, it's just almost like 360. I've seen the weight drop off of you, and I don't look at it as just weight. I look at it as baggage that you was like, honey, I'm shedding it. I'm
Yes.
shedding the baggage off of me. You also, like I said, I see the confidence, the things that you post about. It's not the trauma only, but you talk now more so about what to do in order to overcome the trauma. What are some things, the tips that you can do to overcome? And I love it because it's real life thing, and they see you doing it. And what I love is the transparency, where you're like, today was not a good day, but I chose, and that's a word that you use a lot. I had a choice. I made a choice to run today. I made a choice to, still eat healthy today. And you'll show what it is that you made. You show yourself running, some type of goal that you have, and you're like, I'm pushing through. I'm still, and today was a harder day than normal. So the transparency is like, this is a journey, and you're still doing it. I want, as we're getting ready to close, I can't believe it's been 52 minutes already since we've been talking.
And listen, Asiya, and I also say this: I messed up. I I got triggered. I've been going through it, and I ate a piece of cake, and then I ate a piece of some ice cream. But I'm going to give myself grace. But because I don't want people to think that, oh, if you backslide,
it's all
that
over. You
you're
back
not
at
healed.
square
Yeah,
one. That's
yeah,
not it.
yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
I even find myself where I went back downhill, and then I said, no, 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 I don't want to keep going through this. Like, I can literally now, and it may have taken a couple of months, and I'm like, hold up, we're not doing this. We're not going back to this. And then I'll slowly but surely, what is one of the things that you can do? What are certain, remembering the happiest and the best times of my life. And that was when it was the hardest times. You have the formula, you have the blueprint. Go back to it. And what I love is now, if I do slide off, I'm getting back up quicker, where it's not taking a
Right.
year. So,
Right.
yeah,
I
alhamdulillah.
love it.
Sorry
I
for
love
talking
it.
over your words.
I love it. I love it. I would love for you to share with those, because I'm a true believer of the word empowerment is not just for yourself. True empowerment is when you are empowered and you can inspire and motivate other people. You're sharing it. And I see you do that all the time. But you do it more, you do it on a grander scale than just posting your journey and letting people see that and benefit from it and inspiring and motivating. You, as I mentioned earlier, you have a nonprofit organization and also an author, um, um, named by the same nonprofit organization, Buddy Speaks. Please tell the viewers, if they don't know. I mean, everyone who follows me, I think they know about Shariea. We know a lot of the same people. They know the work, but for those that are not familiar with the work that you do at Buddy Speaks, please share what the work that you do and how parents, schools, houses of worship, teen centers, how they can get a hold of you, and the importance of the work that you're doing to empower those that didn't have what you had growing up.
For those of you who may have just tuned in, Buddy Speaks is a nonprofit organization, 501c3, where we provide education and awareness to help prevent and end childhood sexual assault, and we support survivors of sexual assault. We want to be proactive, but we have to be reactive too, because the reality is that there are people out here, children out here, that are still being abused. There are adults who are just now disclosing. So our job is to shatter glass ceilings, to break the silence in the communities, to, what do they say, the pink elephant, to remove the pink elephant out of the room and talk frankly about sexual assault. Explain to people what the body safety rules are, to have conversations with parents so that they can have conversations with substitute caregivers, and to have conversations with their children to empower their children and let their children know you're in charge of your body. When I'm talking to my students in class, I had a student that had a little bit of milk on his face today. So before I even tell him, I say, you have something on your face, it's right here. Is it okay if I touch it? If he say no, I say, okay, no problem. Letting your children feel empowered to know that they're in charge of their body, teaching children the names of their private parts. That's what my book does. Teaches children their voice is their superpower, because I believe if a child knows that their voice is power, then they won't be silenced the way that I was. Teaching your children that you have a safety circle, that if I knew what a safety circle was, when I went and told the one family member and nothing happened, I would have went to the next one and the next one until I got help. And perhaps if that would have happened, and we know everything is the will of God, but I'm just thinking he would not have been able to not just not hurt me, but not hurt so many other people in the
Right.
family. We support survivors, where we support mothers, we support children. We have a teddy bears that I call it an empowered bear, where if someone reaches out to me and let me know that a child has been assaulted, I send them a bear. The bear wears a cape. It says, "My voice is my superpower."
Okay.
This I want to improve the bear. I want to get a T-shirt that says "I believe you." I'm looking for where I can get the T-shirts for the bears, but I wanted the cape to remind them that their voice is their superpower. And then I personally write a letter to all the children, letting
Yes.
them know.
Yes.
And we have workshops. I went to New York last week or the week before and gave a workshop for the children and a workshop for the parents. I'm going to be a part of the Envision conference that's coming up, representing Buddy Speaks Foundation. That's a big conference that speaks about sexual assault and prevention. And I'm going to be on the panel for. I'm going to be on a panel. We're going to talk about the book. The book I wrote, My Voice is My Superpower. I actually wrote two books. I wrote a book, Buddy Speaks, and that's about a boy who was sexually assaulted. And My Voice is My Superpower, where it's teaching the parents the body safety rules, helping them to have the conversation. Our website is www.buddyspeaks.org. You can find me, my Instagram page, Shariea Shoatz, just like my name, Shariea_Shoatz. It's open. You can find us on our website, www.buddyspeaks.org. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Sister Asia's page. And if you're interested in having a book reading, if you want to purchase my book, if
Yes.
you want to, please feel free to
And
visit.
we had you at our retreat when we had it at the
Oh my
Christian
gosh,
Club.
that
We
was,
did the workshop with the girls, and it is
yes.
important. So if you are a youth organizer, if you're a program director, if you are the program director at a house of worship, if you run a teen center, if you're an executive director, I'm calling you. If you are a parent, if you homeschool and you want to have parents come together to be able to be educated with the children, this is important work. This is life work. Speaking from two survivors, and I don't say survivors, two overcomers of sexual assault and being molested as children. um it can be a success story, or it can be a sad story, a story of defeat, a story of like what she was mentioning, drugs and overeating and body shaming and cutting. It can be a really negative situation because it is not something that you just wake up and just you forget about it because it's not happening anymore. It is a lifelong journey. It is a lifelong journey, and sometimes you are triggered in places and spaces that you don't even expect. You know what it is. So
Listen, I got slightly triggered this evening. I was looking at um a boxer from the gym my son goes to. His opponent looks just like my cousin. And I was like, ew, he looks like a pedophile. I was just like, ew, he looks like my, and it was
It's
crazy.
I'm telling you, it can be
It's
a for
crazy. Just
me. For me, it's a scent.
yeah.
If there's a scent that smells similar to my abuser, it's a trigger for me. So
Short men were a trigger for me for so long. Like I
yeah,
hated short men. I hated dark skinned men. And people used to think, oh, you don't like yourself, you're stuck on color because I had that secret. And
right.
it was like, no, it was because my cousin was short and my cousin was very dark skinned, and I didn't like any men that looked like him. And it's crazy because growing up, we were still around each other, and people,
Ooh,
they think like, oh, but you were still around him. How did he? Because some families don't believe it.
don't
So
believe, and they still
then,
have the abuser around. But I
yeah,
just want to say we are at the top of the hour here at 1 hour. It's just, I mean, Shariea, I wanted to share, your story of overcoming, the way that you've shown tenacity, and the way you have shown, that you're able to, no matter what. And it's happened multiple times with you. And some of our viewers, it's happened more than once. It's never too late to heal.
that's
Reach out if you need help. Reach out to Shariea. Shariea, do you have an email address that if they want to reach out to you, if they can't reach you, or they don't want to put it out there on social media and they're more concerned about discretion, how can they reach out to you, via email?
info at buddyspeaks.org. And
Wonderful.
you
So
can
that's
hit my inbox, my Instagram inbox. I'm here. I'm here to support you, and I believe you. And you're not alone.
That is amazing. So she was talking about that safety circle. If you don't have a family member, Shariea can be part of your safety circle that you need in order to be able to get you through, connect you to the resources that you need, and be able to assist you in your healing journey. So that is what I wanted to share tonight. Shariea, thank you so much.
Thank
I know
you so
it was
much.
an extremely busy day for you, and you still took the time to empower and to pour into someone else, to hopefully inspire and be able to, give voice to someone who may not have disclosed yet. Your voice is your superpower. So thank you so much for sharing your journey of healing and triumph, being triumphant, and your tenacity in determination in being healed, and understanding that you were never to blame, and that you are beautiful in every way possible. So thank you so much. And for those, just really quick, some signs that you may want to look for in your children. She mentioned 4 things that either fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. If you didn't hear it, hit the replay button after it's done, because you're definitely going to want to read this. If your children are biting, fighting at school, grades are dropping, eating disorders, or not eating at all, depression, overly messy, like hoarding, starting to experiment with drugs, wearing baggy clothes to appear, unattractive, self-harm, all of those things she's mentioning. Please take a look at your children, review this, have the conversation with your children, and don't be afraid of the answer. There is help. Reach out to Buddy Speaks if you need, someone to help you through this journey and navigate being able to heal, as not only the person who's gone through it, but also as a family, because it's the whole family that has to heal. So thank you so much, Shariea, for sharing your journey with us. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to have another amazing woman sharing her journey of, and her story of overcoming. And that will be part 3 of our 4-part series today. So again, thank you for the viewers who continuously watch our show. Please share. Sharing is caring. So if you know someone who can benefit, please make sure that you tag them, or share this video with them, because you never know, it can be a life-changing experience. And that's what Jessica Cares and Conversations with Asiya is all about. So stay tuned again, as I mentioned, for next week, the announcement of this amazing woman that we're going to be speaking with. And we look forward to seeing you for another great episode of Conversations with Asiya. Everyone, have a great night, and see you next week.